It is my pleasure to open the annual meeting and exposition by introducing our first keynote speaker for the evening, Ms. Jessica Melore.
Jessica is an internationally known motivational speaker. She's a graduate of Princeton University. In 2002, she was named as one of Glamour magazine's top 10 college women in the country.
She has faced numerous medical challenges in her life after suffering a massive heart attack at the age of 16, followed by life-threatening non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Jessica Melore's experience with adversity are a true testament to how difficult and challenging life can truly be.
She will share with us an inspiring message about the power of the human spirit. So please give a warm credential welcome to Jessica Melore.
So please join me in giving a warm vision welcome to Jessica Melore.
Please join me in welcoming Jessica Melore to the AAPS annual meeting.
Hi, everyone. Well, my name is Jessica Melore, and it's a pleasure to be here to share my story with you today.
When I was 16 years old, I was co-captain of my tennis team, and I'd never so much as spent a night in the hospital. One night, in September of '98, I was out at a restaurant with my family, and I'd been feeling fine the whole day, when all of a sudden the world started spinning, and I saw spots. Then I felt pressure pains going from my chest to my neck, and my arms felt like they were made of lead. And then I heard someone call 911. And I'm thinking, I have homework to finish tomorrow. I have chamber choir auditions. I don't have time to be going to the hospital right now. And I remember lying there for what seemed like an eternity as he moved the cold gel over my heart. And finally, he stopped and looked at my parents and said, "Your daughter is having a major event." And we said, "What?" And he said, "She's having a massive heart attack." So as you might imagine, these were the last words we expected to hear. Massive heart attack? Weren't heart attacks something that only happened to elderly men? And so I looked the doctor right in the eye, and I said, "Am I going to die?" And he just looked at me and didn't say anything. And then he turned and rushed out of the room. And that was the scariest moment.
By some miracle, they managed to stabilize me to take me to a third hospital in hopes of having a heart transplant as my last resort. But because there is such a critical shortage of organ donors, there weren't any hearts available for me at the time. This device is known as the HeartMate LVAD. It was about the size of a large donut and was implanted in my abdomen. It connected to the left side of my heart and literally pumped and did the work for the left side. It had a long drive line that extended outside my stomach and connected to 2 large batteries that I had to change every 2 to 4 hours. A balloon pump had been placed in my left leg as part of a life safety precaution during surgery. This balloon pump ended up cutting off my circulation, and I developed an infection in my leg. Because I was literally hanging on by threads that whole week, it came down to a matter of my leg or my life. And so after a long discussion with my parents, the doctors had to amputate it just above the knee.
In encountering this obstacle in my life, I couldn't let it become my life. I needed to surround myself with friends and family and schoolwork as a form of mental medication to remind me of the life that I had once led and the life that I was working towards returning to full time. So I returned to school and received such an outpouring of support. I was presented with this pump as I was leaving the hospital because anyone who was around me had to learn how to work it. This pump was intended for an emergency situation where my LVAD might stop, meaning that my heart would stop. And so anyone that was around me, whether it was my friends or my teachers or my family, would have to learn how to manually pump my heartbeat until we got to a hospital in time. So many of you might think this might have held me back, the fear of it, but you can live in fear or you can choose to live your life. And 30 of my friends came forward along with my teachers, and we had a training session. And not only did that allow me to go to sleepovers and trips to the mall with my friends, but I was able to resume all of my activities except for tennis, of course. I was secretary of the Key Club. I was in National Honor Society. I went on a school trip to Baltimore with my AP biology class. I went down to Disney World with my school choir to sing with this heart assist device. And I was even a lead in the school play, How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, in which I had to stand on top of a desk with my prosthetic leg and my battery bag and sing.
I needed to prove to myself that I was still the same person and reclaim as much of my life as possible, which is why I kept myself as busy as I possibly could. But what I discovered was I wasn't the same person in a good way. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't some horrible person before that stole candy from children and had no friends. I mean, I was always very driven and optimistic, and I had lots of friends, but going through something like this can really put you to the test and make you realize that you're capable of things that you never thought that you were capable of. Yes, there was a lot of uncertainty, but I refused to let that uncertainty put my plans on hold. So then in May of my senior year, it was my senior prom. And the Wednesday before the prom, I went into the hospital as I did every week to get my blood levels checked. But on this particular occasion, it turned out that my red blood cell count was unusually low. So we had to travel all the way back from New Jersey to the hospital in Philadelphia to get the levels rechecked. It turned out that I was dangerously anemic, and the doctors didn't know why. They told me that if my red blood cell count didn't come up by Friday, the morning of the prom, I would have had to miss it. And so I had 3 blood transfusions, and the night before the prom, my doctor saw that I was kind of distraught because I had missed my nail appointment. And he called up this nurse and said, "We have an emergency on floor 7. And he said, "I need you to bring up your kit." So up comes this nurse with her manicure kit and proceeds to give me a French manicure just in case I was able to make the prom the next day. And, you know, when you think about customer service, it really meant so much to me that my doctor was thinking about me not only as a patient, but as a person. And I think that says a lot for customer service, because no matter who you're dealing with, if the customer knows that you care about them and you have their best interests in mind, it can make all the difference in the world. So, you know, the night before the prom, I still got everything together. My mom washed my hair in the hospital sink, because even though there was that uncertainty, I wasn't going to let that uncertainty prevent me from walking out that door as soon as possible if I heard good news the next day. After a harrowing 24 hours, that night I was named the prom queen. And that's me, just days after my transplant. The timing of the transplant was perfect in that it allowed me to attend college on time just 3 months later. I did have to miss my graduation ceremony in high school, but my younger brother accepted my diploma for me, and I figured that the heart was a pretty decent graduation gift. So as I mentioned, I was able to attend college on time, as planned, and a lot of people suggested to me to postpone college a year. I mean, after all, I just had major open heart surgery. If we let uncertainty prevent us from doing all the things that we want to do in life, then think about all the things that we'd be missing out on. And then we'd be faced with the biggest what if of all. What if I had gone through with those plans? Where would I be now today because of them? I had a wonderful freshman year at college. And then the summer after freshman year, it was the 4th of July, and I was sitting at my parents' house on their couch and sort of absently rubbing my neck, when all of a sudden my fingers brushed against a lump about the size of a quarter. So I instantly panicked, and I told my parents, and they said, before we start worrying, let's go see a doctor and get it checked out. We took a biopsy, and my worst fears were confirmed. I had non-Hodgkin's disease, cancer of the lymph nodes, one of the leading causes of death among adolescents. Now, I'd always been one to roll with the punches, but at this point, I was just at a loss. It seemed inconceivable to me that I had gone through so much, that I had stared death in the face and overcome it. I had gotten my heart transplant, I'd just completed my freshman year at Princeton, was finally moving on with my life, and here she's telling me it's only a matter of time before I would die? From a very early point, I came to the conclusion that happiness is a decision that you make, and circumstances are only as bad as you allow them to be. So I made the decision, first of all, that I was going to beat this cancer. And second of all, that I was going to have as much fun as possible doing it. So about 2 weeks before the start of my sophomore year, I had my first round of chemotherapy. And by the end of first semester of sophomore year, I was in complete remission. And in June of 2003, I graduated with my senior class at Princeton. And it just meant so much to me to graduate on time in 4 years, despite all of my setbacks. Life is truly a gift, and that's why it's so important to take advantage of every opportunity that life has to offer. And so I'd like to leave you with my personal motto, which is an adaptation from a James Dean quote. Dream as if you'll live forever, but live as if you only have today. Thank you very much.